No.
Eric is a female because he's going to have to sing for his lunch. Or at
We're not using it.
So you wrote the Vatican flag, you wrote the National Brotherhood Week, goes back to 1965. But it was almost.
They'll be the winning one.
All right, there it begins. There it starts. It's such a euphemism anyway.
Oh, you know, I love bamboo. But you heard about the 10,000 bees around the beach chase by the beach, right? Yeah. We can reach a beach. Have you ever read the beach? No, it says we don't have internet access. No, we probably do, but I didn't go to the right. Because you read Norwegian, right? You don't? Oh, that's terrible. No, you say you're 11 years old? Well, you know what?
Is it with your walker? Is it with your walker?
19 for you.
Really good job cleaning fish.
I have to take them stuck into the item.
Okay, choice or the
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We usually stay standing for a moment to recognize anyone from our houses that is ill or we've had anybody deceased. Helga, my vice president, is out sick and wishes to be remembered. And Dorothy Hoffman, who some of us know has been out for a long time with back surgery, she says she'll hopefully be able to join us again soon. So we'll have a moment of silence to remember these people. Okay, so if you'd like to be seated, are there any birthdays that we need to remember for this month? All right. So now at this point, I usually introduce our representative from the House of Norway, but I think he's been roped into serving the. He's wearing many hats or aprons today. Can you come and give us a little? Tell us about what we're going to eat.
Do you want to have the chef?
And about the door prizes.
Susan.
I'll tell you about the door prizes while we're waiting. These beautiful table settings will be the door prizes. I think there's 7 of them. And as you know, we don't do the drawing until after the meeting, that way nobody leaves. Here's our wonderful chef.
I am Susan Cody from House of Norway, and we have a tomato shrimp aspic on a salad just lightly dressed with an Italian dressing, and cauliflower soup. Oh, dessert? Strawberry shortcake. And blueberry.
Sounds wonderful. And also they decided that they would serve us, so we can sit back and enjoy and chat while they bring food to us. So everybody enjoyed it. So this is Maury, the president of the House of Norway, and he has a couple of words for you.
Well, thank all you for showing up today. I hope you enjoyed this afternoon. You had a good speaker. Hello. Welcome to this luncheon this afternoon. Hope you enjoy it. We have a speaker by Eric Nilsson who's going to talk to us about Norway. He's very well versed in the goings on. So enjoy.
One other thing I'll mention before we all chomp down, they are going to do the presentation quickly, and also there'll be a video. If you can't see it on the screen because of the lighting, it will be also on there, so you can be able to all enjoy it. And that will be after we finish eating. No, I'm sorry, between the meal and the dessert.
There's the ladies down there. Sorry, I'm not
Everything started very early. And then once you are 33.
Let me get some more lemon.
Yeah, very sure. Officially with them anymore,
Oh, sure, I'll shut my camera off. It's running.
Well, you could leave it running and eat.
Well,
It's kind of boring. It's up to you.
I'll shut it off right now and then people start talking and stuff later.
If you want to try, you have a microphone there just there. If you want to try, we're going to show it here, but because of the ambient light, we're also showing it up here. And I did a survey this morning, and I said everyone who has the back towards the television screen doesn't really want to see the show. and everyone is facing it, hopefully it does. Yeah, you're allowed to turn your chair around if you like to see this. But some of you are perhaps still eating. I see a gentleman there who is still eating. And what I call this show, because I get tired of the usual stuff, I call it Off the Beaten Path. On the different part of Norway that you are accustomed to. And I'm going to start with something which I think is very interesting. This mountain, by the way, can any of you read my t-shirt? Well, of course, you have to speak Norwegian in order to do it. But I brought an English translation. This is the official translation of what's on my shirt. Have you ever chanced to see the dented edge? Nigh on 4 miles long it stretches sharp before you like the sky. Down over glaciers, landslip scours, down the toppling grey moraines. You can see both right and left, straight into the torrent that slumber, black and sluggish, more than 700 fathoms deep below. This is from the play Peer Gynt by Henry Ibsen. And this is one of the few plays where you can actually say, this is where it took place. And it's actually, he called it Yendin Edge, the name is Besseggen. And the reason for that is that the mountain, this lake is like Yende, but the lake on the front of it is Bessevann, or Besse Lake. So he got the wrong name, but Yende is the more famous of the two lakes. Now, the mountain, we hiked here on the 20th of June last year. There's still ice on the pond, or the upper lake. There's no more ice on the lower lake. Just to give an idea of what life is like when you don't know what you're doing. Which is my prerogative, because I'm a man, and I only know what the woman tells me. Just to give an idea what it is to hike that mountain. It's a challenge. For instance, right here we found a rock outcropping. How do we get around it? Because that's always the case when you have a rock outcropping. And as you come up on the first ledge, there are 3 ledges. This is the first one. You can see the 2 lakes again, the frozen one and the open one. And now I'm going to change the subject matter a little bit, because this whole area is kind of a cultural pearl in Norway. The mountain, as I said, is used by Henry Ibsen in the play Peer Gynt. And the lake, along at the far end of the lake, on the western end of the lake, a girl was born in 1871. And she was born 7 weeks premature and not expected to live. So when a minister came by, about a week and a half after birth, it was decided to better baptize the child then and there. By the way, the mother was alone in the cottage, and the only kind of running water they had in the cottage was that the roof leaked when it rained, which it did on the day that the child was born. And she was also had, by the way, 2 other children, so she gave birth and then got on with taking care of the farm, which is what she was there for, not childbirth. And the girl was not expected to live, but she did, and when she was 20 years old and was still up here in this area, Edward Grieg and a few other people came by and they heard her sing. And Edward Grieg was so taken with her singing that he wrote down 17 of her folk songs that she sang, with his favorite being Jendina's Lullaby, and it became Opus 66 by Edward Grieg. And furthermore, as they left, she played for them on a bukke horn. That's a goat or sheep horn with 3 small holes drilled into it that they can use to play music, very primitive music. But part of that is incorporated into his musical piece Hjemve. I guess we call it Longing for Home in English. And other composers too, as her fame spread, other composers came too and listened to her and used her music. And actually when she was 23 years old in 1894, and Dutch composer Julius Röntgen came, and he was recently widowed, and he was so taken with the girl he proposed marriage. Now, you have to understand that for a 23-year-old girl in farm country in Norway to be single was pretty much what you used to call old maid in Tennessee. And the story goes she was sorely tempted, but she also knew that she could never ever move away from her mountain. As she said, it would be like pulling a flower up with the roots, it would die. And this girl, I was not expected to live. When she was 40, she became a companion lady for the Dutch Queen when she was visiting the area. When she was 82, she was interviewed in Norwegian broadcasting. When she was 90, she was one of the guests of honor for the music festival in Bergen. There were 3 guests of honor. She was one and the most popular. The other was the King of Norway and the Shah of Persia, and as she said, and that wife of his. Jadine was up and well and lively till the day she died, and she just 2 months short of her 101st birthday. So you see, Norwegian girls are sturdy. But let me go on to something entirely different. A very different aspect of Norway called helvete. Yes, helvete means hell in English. Whereas the word hell, by the way, in Norwegian means good fortune. We are much more civilized than you are. And I paid them with my dollar, and I went down into helvete. And I'm not sure, I think it actually is the part down here. And I can't swear I saw the bottom, but I listened, I couldn't hear anybody moaning. It was not particularly hot, and I never saw the devil. So, to all of you, I have some really, really good news, because I was all alone there. And you know, and I know that if none of your ancestors made it, you're safe. Okay? No, whereas this is Norway, and by the way, for those of you who want to navigate around in Norway, the first pictures were from the Jotunheimen National Park, and this is in Espedalen, and it is a national monument. I said it costs you $1 to get in. What I should mention before you go is it costs you $5 to get back out. So if that was hell, this is heaven. A place like that in the mountains, by a lake where you can fish trout for eating, and you can have skiing in the winter, bathing in the summer if you're a tough bird, and otherwise just have a good time. I mean, Norwegians love their mountain places. So you have this one, or if you want something a little more rugged, something like this. Maybe something a little bit cozier, like this. And if you really want to go economy, I mean absolutely rock bottom price, something like this. Okay? This is actually on the island of Vikna, in the extreme northwest corner of Nord-Trøndelag. Just before the 3, what we call northern Norway counties, or Nordland, Troms, or Finnmark. Now, the coast as you come up here is very different from down in the typical west coast of Norway. And I wanted to show you, something besides state churches and fjords. So here I am in a ferry, on a ferry, and by the way, there are other occupants along the road for you to greet. They look like a couple of young bucks. The female of the reindeer species have antlers that are year-round. But the male grows new ones every year, and that's why Santa Claus has nothing but female reindeer. And I'm not going to talk to you about that. But you can see also the skin on the antlers say that's fresh grown. They rub it off in August about, before the rutting season. Now in Norway, you have 3 kinds of house paint of yore. You had white, red, and I guess we call it ochre. Should be Argini, ochre, sort of yellowish, yeah?
Yes.
And it was significant, because if the house was white, like the one in the background over there, it meant that the people who lived there were wealthy. They could afford the most expensive paint that had the shortest lifespan. If you had ochre, you were solid middle class, and if you had red, it was outhouses, and you were just not in the money. And the red lasted a very long time, but as you can see, it didn't last forever. Here's just another scenery from northern Norway. You can now start to see some snow up in the hillsides. Wildflowers. I love wildflowers. For one thing, I don't have to care of them. Again. This is the marker for the Arctic Circle. We are on the ocean here. So you see the snow is coming down the hill to greet us. And this is some spectacular landscape in northern Norway. The place where I bet you none of you have been yet. Well, maybe the Norwegian ones here, but the rest of you, I don't think you go there very often. A glacier coming down to the water. The Swarties, the black glacier. No, the Norwegians have one hobby that almost everyone in Norway have, is they love their flowers. And they will plant them almost anywhere, including at the edge of a parking lot. There's still the glacier in the background. The typical fishing village, where you drag the boats up. No, there was a lady from southern Norway. She came to move north and she looked out the window the first morning and said, "Oh my God, look at that lawn." So she rushed down to the nursery store and she said, "My garden is full of dandelions. What can I do?" And the man was a very wise man. He said, "Learn to live with them." No, remember those two girls in that sewer pipe, water pipe? Well, Norwegian girls are tough. You've seen the snow on the hillside, and these two girls have just been swimming in the fjord, in the saltwater fjord. They've been tough girls. I'm a wimp. I don't even go January 1st down to the bay. But even the people who go there, they don't get my great respect, okay? And by the way, my sister-in-law who lives in the south, she makes hole in the ice and goes in the water. There's some more pictures. This is from the Lofoten Islands in Norway. And there you can see again some snow. Back in 1898, they built a new church here. It's called the Lofoten Cathedral. It holds 1,200 people. I think they can all sit also. You know, churches in the old days didn't have pews. You had to stand. And services could last 4 hours. That would have made me an atheist on the spot. But this one, actually, the site here, they think there have been a church here since the 1100s sometime. But this one is from 1898. But rather famous up there in the north. Some more, you can see how people, where there's a possibility you build, because most of the people up here made a living from fishing. Either fishing themselves or being merchants, buying up the fish, harvested, and carry it on to the next link. Now this picture is kind of fun because it's taken, we're about 15 degrees east of 0, and it's taken at 1 o'clock in the morning. That would be plain midnight, under the midnight sun. I'm showing this just to give you some idea of how bright that light can be. And here are 2 of the crew members on our boat. So you notice this is not a Princess Cruise boat. It is much better. Much better. And 2 of the people on board, the core group of the people traveling were all people who had gone together in a military school, a school operated by the Norwegian Army back between 1958 and 59. And one of our members, the gentleman standing in the back in the red coat with the flashing armbands, was one of our fellow students. He arranged for us to have this boat. And this boat was something else. It's a schooner from 1868. Wow. And it's just still sailing and she's up there in the far north under the midnight sun. Popular party boat. Now, I must confess, we sailed mainly with the engine. We also had sailed up for a little while. Now, that night we spent there, we spent 2 nights out. I stayed in the local hotel, which is not quite Holiday Inn. And because I am a meter 92, 93, somewhere in there, and the beds are a meter 80, I had the 2 bottoms here. I had this one and this one. Or my feet had that one, I should say. But it still was a lot more, so to say, accommodating than the bed I had the night before. Which was only about a meter 50 long. So there it was a question of sort of curling up. No. That's me, yes. Can't you tell that handsome looking guy snoring like hell? No. For this whole trip that I took was a 6-day trip up to the boat, and I had the rain for just a few hours, and that part is not included. However, we did have a good wind the next day, and you can see, unlike the Princess Cruise, which artificially is kept level, here you feel the water. But you know something? A lot of the guys brought their wives along, and nobody got seasick. Nobody. Oh, by the way, you saw that party where I showed you the navigator in the back? That was because one of the couples on board had their 40th wedding anniversary, and they brought champagne. Norwegians know how to travel in style. Okay, and so this actually, I'm glad we had this weather. You probably don't realize this, but the old ships, some of them were built right, some weren't quite built right. Are there any Swedes here? Yes, because the Swedes have a ship called Vasa. It sailed for 28 minutes. And then it sank. Now this one has now been sailing for about 140 years, about 145. And if a ship is built right, it feels right. When you sail it, when you're out in the water, you can feel it. And this one is a fantastic ship. And with that, the Midnight Sun wishes you a blessed afternoon. Thank you for your
Thank you all for coming.
So at this time, we'll bring the business meeting to order. And the first item of business is Secretary Alicia with her minutes from last week.
Hello, everyone. The House of Czech Republic hosted the July 10th, 2013 luncheon. Vice President